Welcome to the first edition of BURGH Watching. Today, we're taking a look at the Penn Avenue corridor and the work that the Penn Avenue Arts Initiative has done in the area over the course of the last 14 years. What might seem at first glance like desolate storefronts is actually an area teeming with artists, musicians, photographers, poets, performing artists, and so much more. Today, we had the opportunity to speak with three of those: photographer John Colombo and artists Laura Jean McLaughlin and Bob Ziller. We also had the opportunity to speak with Councilman Patrick Dowd and get a take on his vision for the future of the corridor.
The Penn Avenue corridor, it's about the time I moved to Highland Park, so I would say 12, 15 years ago the project started, and it was designed to try to take a corridor and repopulate it or populate. Actually, there were a lot of abandoned storefronts and a lot of issues with blighted property both on the corridor and off the corridor. So try to find a way to bring people to that corridor and really focus particularly on arts and using the arts as a way to transform not just what people saw, but actually the activity that was going on in the corridor and in the community. So it was a way to really change what people saw on Penn Avenue, and it's been incredibly successful.
I hitchhiked here from New York with $20 and a backpack 20 years ago, and I was just living in parks at the time. There used to be an apartment complex on Fifth Avenue that had an outdoor swimming pool, so I would bathe there at night.
I always wanted to be an artist, but I was encouraged to do something practical, so I ended up going to school for medical technology. And then it was my last semester in college that I found out that I loved working with clay, and so I did work in a laboratory for a little bit, but then just kept on working with ceramics and decided to go back to graduate school for clay. So I have my master's in clay. And
I like the term photographer better because anybody can call themselves an artist, which is fine. That's fantastic. And there certainly is an artistic element to what I do, and I like to bring creative and fresh ideas into my photos. And that's what an artist does. Right. But as a photographer, I'm a businessman because I have to make a living. And I'm not saying, and there are artists that make a living. I know there was a woman who lived across the street. She was a well-paid artist. Right. And there's a gentleman down the street. He is a well-paid artist. But not everybody gets paid to be an artist.
They're there, and they're active. And so you have the glass activity, you have the dance activity, you have, there was a TAC theater at one point, and hopefully we'll see something like that reemerge. So you have all sorts of activity, first and foremost. And then you have people that come to participate, either as, mainly as the audience, right? They come to see what's going on, or to participate in classes or things of that sort. So it's bringing people to the corridor. People who may not otherwise come to that area are now coming, and they're seeing things in ways that they've never seen them before.
I actually was on a panel discussion at CMU, and Jeffrey Dorsey, who was at that time, he was the president of Friendship Development, and so he and I discussed what was going on Penn Avenue, and this was about 8 or 9 years ago, and so he was telling me about all the different buildings and what was going on. So I came and checked out. This was actually one of the first buildings I looked at, and it used to be a paint-your-own pottery studio, or a paint-your-own pottery ceramic business. So I decided this was the perfect space for a ceramic studio. So then I was able to purchase the building, which was only $15,000, which was pretty crazy.
There was a sign at the King Court Theater. It said "Artists Wanted," so I went by there, and I ended up painting the ceiling of the theater there, which was a lot of fun.
By freelancing, I can shoot a wedding, I can shoot a newspaper, I can do a headshot, I can do a senior portrait, and I like to think of myself more as a business person, that is creative.
You have a lot of collective activity. People use the word synergy, right? You see things starting to come together. So there are programs, I forget if it's monthly programs, where people will come. Unblurred, I think, is the one that I'm most familiar with, where people just come and be in the corridor and just be and see and act and have fun.
We actually opened the bookstore about a year ago, and it's just been really great having the community come in and look at books, and then they can also come back and look at artwork. And so I also have, along with my work, I have a lot of other artists' work that I've traded and everything. So just the bookstore and the studio work really well together, and just really great getting to meet people from the community and the surrounding communities.
I had placed some Warhol flowers on an abandoned building at the foot of the Birmingham Bridge over in Soho. And the guy who I asked him to photograph it because he's a photographer, but I really wanted him to help me carry the huge ladder. It was like a 32-foot fiberglass ladder that weighs a lot. So, I had set up the flowers, and while we were there, he said, you should apply to the Sprout Fund to do this. This is a great idea to do on abandoned buildings. So I had, at the time, about 10 other buildings in mind to do similar things with, and I did apply, and my friend's name is David Grimm. He's a photographer and blogger. And they had the idea that, well, we really like this, so why don't you do like community painting parties and have the public do the flowers. And I thought, wow, that's a great idea.
There are huge benefits. If you, I can tell you this from personal experience, actually. If you were to look at people who, let's say you were going to go buy a house, just off the corridor, 15, 20 years ago, if you were to go and look at a house, as I once did, you would then begin to wonder what's happening on that corridor. You'd go and look. And 15, 20 years ago, you'd see drug transactions. You'd see, not necessarily the kind of activity you want to live next to. If you're now a homeowner and you're thinking about selling your house, and people come and they do that sort of observation, they're going to see a vibrancy and an attractiveness that's going to say, hey, I'd like to purchase that house. And in fact, it'll make those houses all the more attractive. So from a property value standpoint, that's one thing. But I think even more importantly than that, it's about building a community. We talk a lot of times about property values, and it is important. People care about their personal wealth. But what they really care about is their quality of life, the wealth of the quality of life. And if you live just off of Penn Avenue on one of the side streets, Fairmont or whatever, and you're seeing kids go to dance class, or maybe your kids are going to that dance class, right, at the Dance Alloy. That's a really great transformation for you as a property owner, and for you as a parent, or for you as a resident of an area. So it's had that kind of positive effect.
The interesting thing, I think a lot of artists are coming into the area, and it's changing quite a bit. So I think it's important to include the people who have been from here, and make them feel that they're welcome, and we don't want to just come in and have our artwork everywhere. And so it's great to work with the community and have them feel part of what's going on, because I think it's really changing pretty quickly. And so it's great meeting the people from the surrounding areas too, and having them have a part in the artwork.
Every first Friday on Penn Avenue, the Penn Avenue Arts Initiative puts out a bulletin, a physical brochure with a map and a listing of all the events that are going on, which is really great. And they also send out thousands of emails to people, which is really great for local businesses, local galleries. And every first Friday, there's hundreds of people on Penn Avenue checking out the art scene here. The music's going on. Usually at Garfield Artworks, Manny Thiner has bands going, and also at Modern Formations, there's usually music, but there's always a lot of activity here.
I've been to events that the Sprout Fund has held at their location, on that corridor. So you're out there, you're visiting, you're participating. I've been there, I can't even count the number of times now. When we first moved into the area, that wasn't, we rarely went there. So just on that simple level. But as an office, we've participated in a number of projects to help, help along with the glass lofts or things of that sort, try to help advance that. And then for a while I was a board member at the Dance Alloy, and their work, they've been just a fabulous partner for that area.
I really think, Pittsburgh could be a real model for what could happen in the arts world, and that arts really do make a difference in the kids' lives, and just giving them, something different or something bigger than themselves, or, working as a community. I think it's great. And so I would love to see more funding towards the arts, and, just keep up the support that has been happening.
Thanks for joining us for today's BURGH Watching. To be sure that you don't miss future episodes, you can follow us on Twitter @BURGHLiving or www.facebook.com/BURGHLiving. Thanks.